She built their empire in silence for 9 years until one spreadsheet revealed the betrayal that would ignite a corporate war. What started as a quiet resignation turned into a high-stakes battle of power, secrets, and revenge. In the end, the most dangerous weapon wasn't money or status, it was the woman they underestimated. I blinked at my screen. 40. That couldn't be right. But the numbers remained stubborn, unchanging, even after I refreshed the page a third time. I leaned closer, the glow of the spreadsheet illuminating the fine print that had detonated the quiet order of my morning. It had been an accident. Kyle from HR had emailed the full compensation spreadsheet to the entire finance department instead of just a leadership team. One errant click, and here I was, staring at it. Each row is more devastating than the last. Mason Reeves, 2 years at the company, $137,000. Vanessa Lynn, 14 months, $134,500. Tristan Adler, 8 months, 1 for 2. Lowell, all trained by me. Every last one of them. And me? Eleanor Avery, 9 years, 98. 750. The number sat there like a scarlet stain on an otherwise pristine record. 9 years. Countless 60-hour weeks. My blood, sweat, and likely my future bones were entangled in every line of code, every automated system, every compliance protocol that this company now relied on. And I was earning almost $40,000 less than the people I had mentored, trained, carried. My name was buried on the third page. The ache in my chest was sharp, acidic, as I scrolled down and saw it again, as if proximity to the top of the spreadsheet somehow denoted worth. I looked across the office and spotted Mason, laughing at his screen, probably another cryptocurrency meme. He still asked me how to reconcile accounts payable, yet he earned more. 3 minutes later, Kyle's recall email came through. Too late. I'd already downloaded the file and backed it up to my encrypted drive. I closed my laptop and rose from my desk. My movements were smooth, practiced, and automatic. My hands trembled not from fear, but a glacial rage that curled around my ribs like barbed wire. I walked to Daniel Hammond's office, knocked twice, and entered without waiting. He looked up from a folder, frowning. "Eleanor, something urgent?" I placed the open laptop in front of him. "I need to understand this." His eyes flicked to the spreadsheet. I watched a subtle widening of his pupils. He knew exactly what he'd been a part of. He sighed, leaned back, steepling his fingers. "You know I can't discuss other employees' compensation. I'm not asking about theirs," I said. "I'm asking about mine." He gave me that patronizing sigh that managers are perfect at making you feel like you're being unreasonable. "The market's changed since you were hired. Your compensation was set in a different economy. So adjust it. It's not that simple." He shrugged. "There are bands, structures, policies. Take it or leave it. I'd like to request a formal compensation review. I can submit it, but it'll likely be denied. We just did annual reviews last quarter. You got your standard 3% increase." He looked at his watch. "Was there anything else?" I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call my sister Meredith to vent. I went home, poured a glass of cheap Cabernet, and sat at my kitchen table with my laptop. And I began to write. "Hi, I'm Ellie. Eleanor Avery, 34 years old. The kind of person who alphabetizes her spice rack and color codes her closet. The kind of person who's been told she's detail-oriented corporate code 4. Will pile work on you until you break, because you're too responsible to let anything fail." Let me pause. Before I go any further, if you're reading this or watching the video adaptation, I eventually may drop a heart in the comments if you've ever felt undervalued. Because what I'm about to share changed everything for me. And maybe it will for you. 2.so there I was, at my kitchen table, glass half full, heart nearly empty. And I started building the most important document of my career. A timeline. 2014, hired as a financial analyst. Built the company's first automated reporting system. Saved 30 hours of manual labor a week. 2015, promoted to senior analyst. Restructured accounts receivable process. Reduced overdue collections by 42%. 2016, designed a tax compliance framework that passed a federal audit with 0 findings. Year by year, I built the record. I listed every crisis I'd averted, Every million I'd saved, every impossible fix I'd implemented when the system was on the brink of collapse, every person I'd trained who now makes more than me. I titled the document The Cost of Institutional Memory. 43 pages. On the final page, I did the math. In the previous year alone, I had saved the company $267,459. Is the salary increase to match the current market value? 39,500. The math wasn't hard. I had it printed and professionally bound. Then I showered, put on the most expensive outfit I owned, charcoal pencil skirt, cream silk blouse, and walked into the office at 7:15 a.m. I placed 3 things on CEO Garrett Wilson's desk: my resignation letter, an offer letter from Horizon Financial Solutions, 1 for 500 plus full benefits, my leather-bound analysis. Then I went to my desk and began working like it was any other Tuesday. By 9:30, my phone rang. Garrett's extension. Eleanor, could you come to my office, please? His voice was tight. I gathered my notebook and pen, walked across the floor deliberately, feeling eyes follow me. Word had spread. Everyone knew about the spreadsheet. When I entered, Garrett wasn't alone. Daniel, Kyle from our, and Vanessa Chen, the COO. I stayed standing. We've reviewed your document, Garrett began, tapping the bound report. It's quite thorough. Thank you. There seems to be a misunderstanding about compensation that we should address, Kyle interjected, sweating slightly. No misunderstanding. I've trained 5 people who now earn significantly more than I do. I'm making a business decision based on that information. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. If you'd given us time, I did. For 9 years. Vanessa finally spoke. You've put significant thought into this, Eleanor. I have. What would it take for you to reconsider? Garrett asked. My market value is established, both by your structure and the offer letter. But this isn't just about money. It's about being systematically undervalued. I let the silence grow. Let it settle like dust. My conditions are $150,000. Salary, retroactive bonus of $39,500, and a formal compensation equity review across all departments. Kyle gasped. Garrett leaned back. That's highly unusual. So is building your financial infrastructure at a 40% discount for nearly a decade. Finally, Garrett nodded. Give us 24 hours to prepare a response. My resignation is effective in 2 weeks, I said. But my knowledge transfer plan requires 60 days minimum. You have 24 hours to decide if that gap is worth addressing. As I turned to leave, Vanessa spoke again. Eleanor, who made you the competing offer? I paused. Horizon Financial Solutions. Catherine Walsh. The silence that followed was pure, stunned recognition. I walked out, and just like that, everything began to shift. I spent the next 3 hours at my desk, answering emails, reviewing reports, and pretending my world hadn't just been upended. But behind the calm exterior, I was watching, listening. I measured the shift in air pressure as the news of my quiet rebellion rippled through the office like an invisible tidal wave. People tried to act normal. Some offered me hesitant smiles, unsure if I'd become a cautionary tale or a legend. Others avoided my gaze altogether, their expressions flickering with something close to fear. Power, I was learning, didn't just come from titles or salary brackets. It came from clarity, from knowing exactly what you brought to the table. And I had finally remembered my worth. By 1:00 p.m., a meeting invite appeared on my calendar. Pine Room Leadership Discussion. It was from Garrett's executive assistant. No agenda, just one word. Leadership. I showed up 5 minutes early, because punctuality was still stitched into my DNA. Inside, Garrett was seated at the head of the sleek oval table. Daniel and Kyle flanked him, trying to appear composed. Vanessa Chen stood by the whiteboard, arms crossed. A new addition joined them, Thomas Whitaker, the company's legal counsel. The moment I stepped inside, every eye turned to me. Eleanor, Garrett began, gesturing toward the seat across from him. Thank you for coming. I sat slowly, opened my leather notebook and folded my hands over it. We've reviewed your proposal, Garrett continued, his voice tight with a polite restraint that wasn't there that morning. And we're prepared to counter. Thomas slid a document across the table. I took my time opening it. Salary, $155,000. Bonus, $45,000. New title, Senior Director of Financial Operations. Seat on the Executive Leadership Committee. I raised my eyes to meet Garrett's. Impressive. We're acknowledging your contributions, Vanessa said, finally taking a seat. And we want to retain your institutional knowledge. I nodded. I appreciate the offer, but it's not just about me anymore. Daniel cleared his throat. We've also authorized a review of compensation equity across departments. HR will begin pulling data next week. My heart hammered once in my chest, but I kept my face composed. And one more item, Thomas added. A confidentiality agreement. Standard language regarding compensation structures and any irregularities you may have come across during your tenure. There it was. I looked at him calmly. Irregularities? Purely standard language, he repeated. We include it in all executive-level contracts. Of course, I said, sliding the document back toward him. Email me the NDA. I'll review it thoroughly before signing. Thomas's jaw tensed. I'd also like a written commitment confirming the compensation review will begin within 30 days. Signed by both Garrett and Vanessa. Garrett hesitated, then nodded. We'll include it. The meeting ended with polite handshakes and tight smiles. But as I walked out, I felt their eyes on me, measuring me. I wonder what else I knew. They should have asked that question 18 months ago. Back at my desk, I opened the file. Fraudulent vendor log private copy. It had started quietly an unapproved vendor payment that caught my eye mid-quarter. A $13,875 expense with no purchase order. When I'd flagged it to Daniel, he'd brushed it off as pre-approved. The next one came 3 months later. Another vendor, another post office box address. No website, no contact person. I kept a separate log. Quarter after quarter, the pattern became clearer. By the end of year 1, I had flagged 6 such vendors. By month 18, I'd traced $2.7 million in payments to shell companies. All elegant, all masked. The money was laundered through 7 different LLCs, funneled into a holding company, Pinewood Ventures, the registered agent, Nay Peterson, brother-in-law, to Thomas Whitaker. The document authorizing the company's formation carried the same signature as Thomas's marriage license. It was airtight, and Catherine Walsh knew it, which is why she had called me the moment she saw my name trending on LinkedIn. Did you do it? She texted that night. I typed back one word. Yes. Her reply came instantly. Their loss, our gain. Dinner to celebrate? We met at a rooftop bar overlooking the river. The air smelled like jasmine and grilled shrimp, and the city shimmered like it had something to hide. You were always the smartest one in that building, she said, clinking her glass of white wine against mine. They just thought silence meant weakness. Not anymore, I said. Catherine's eyes gleamed. How soon can you start as CFO? 3 weeks. They think they bought my silence. She smiled, and it was the kind of smile you only wear when you've been burned before. I want you to be ready, she said, because once you walk away, the house of cards will fall hard. I stared at her. You think it'll leak? I know it will, she said, and when it does, you need to be miles ahead. Do you trust me? I didn't answer immediately, but I raised my glass, and we toasted to the beginning of a new empire. The following 2 weeks were strange. I was suddenly included in executive meetings I'd previously only prepared materials for. Garrett nodded at me in the hallway. Vanessa sent me thank you emails. Daniel brought me coffee black, no sugar, exactly how I liked it. Meanwhile, I kept sending questions about the confidentiality agreement back to legal, minor wording issues, slight inconsistencies, nothing major, but enough to stall the process. Every delay bought me time. Meredith, my sister, noticed a change in me over dinner that weekend. You're glowing, she said. Power looks good on me. You're not scared? I'm not the one who should be. On the 15th day, 1 day after my original resignation would have taken effect, I received an unexpected calendar invite. Emergency executive session, Pine Room. When I walked in, the air was different. Garrett, Vanessa, Daniel, Thomas, and on the screen, Amara Jackson, chair of the board. We're finalizing your new role. Garrett began. I nodded. But before we do, I said, placing a folder on the table. There's something I need to share. Daniel blinked. This isn't about my salary. They opened the folder. 15 pages of meticulous documentation, payment trails, fraudulent vendors, shell companies, transaction amounts, dates, signatures. Amara leaned forward on the screen. This is serious. I flagged the first payment 18 months ago, I said. It was dismissed. I flipped to page 12. The funds were funneled through LLCs connected to Pinewood Ventures, a company registered to Thomas Whitaker's brother-in-law. Thomas remained still. This is absurd, he said. The signature authorizing the LLC's formation matches your marriage license. Silence. Amara's voice sliced through the tension. Why bring this to us first? Because I believe in giving this company a chance to fix itself internally. The rest of the afternoon was a blur. Outside counsel was called. Security escorted Thomas out. Forensic accountants were brought in. I answered every question, provided every document. By midnight, it was clear Thomas had masterminded the embezzlement with 2 accomplices in accounting. Daniel hadn't been complicit, just negligent. I left the building at 1:17 a.m. Catherine was waiting across the street. In her car. How did it go? Exactly as you predicted. You ready? As your new CFO, I said. Absolutely. She smiled. Let's change everything. And I knew we would. The news broke 3 days later. It started with a leak to a mid-tier business blog, a vague headline about financial discrepancies uncovered at one of the city's fastest-growing firms. By lunch, a major financial news outlet had picked it up. By dinner, it was everywhere. The words embezzlement, internal audit, and legal investigation danced across headlines like confetti, and just like that, the silence shattered. I was sitting at my favorite window table at Delphi Cafe, nursing a cappuccino and watching the storm unfold from a safe distance. Catherine sat across from me, her phone buzzing non-stop. Anonymous source, huh? She asked, glancing up with a sly smile. I sipped my coffee. Must have been someone very familiar with their internal systems, she chuckled. They should have given you a statue, Ellie. I'd have settled for a fair salary. The fallout was immediate. Thomas was arrested within 48 hours. His 2 accomplices in accounting, Sharon Willis and Greg Larkin, were escorted out of the office by security the same afternoon the news broke. Vanessa issued a carefully worded internal email assuring employees that leadership was cooperating fully with investigators. Garrett tried to downplay the incident. But you can't downplay millions siphoned through ghost vendors. The board issued a formal statement. An emergency press conference was held. Amara Jackson, stoic and sharp in a navy suit, delivered it with surgical precision. The actions of a few do not define the values of this company, she said. But let me be clear. We are taking decisive action to ensure this never happens again. Behind the scenes, it was chaos. The company's value plummeted 18% in the first week. Clients began requesting reassurances, audits, and in some cases, exits. Daniel was placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. Officially, he hadn't done anything illegal, but his negligence cost the company dearly. I knew it would only get worse, because they still didn't know what else I had. Horizon Financial Solutions. I started as CFO just as the scandal hit its fever pitch. My first day was quiet. Catherine gave me a corner office, a team of 15, and the kind of welcome that made you feel like a general returning from war. You've got 6 client meetings lined up this week, she said, handing me a sleek portfolio. 3 of them jumped ship from your old company. They want transparency, integrity, systems they can trust. I flipped through the names. Each one was a former high-value client that I had helped onboard and maintain. I know these people, I said. They trusted me. And now, Catherine said, they get to trust you again, on your terms. For the first time in years, I felt not just competent, but powerful. But the real storm wasn't in the headlines. It came in the form of a voicemail. Eleanor, it's Garrett. I'd appreciate 5 minutes of your time. We're having some difficulty navigating the systems you created. The audit team is struggling. Translation: they couldn't untangle what I had built without me. I called back out of curiosity, not sympathy. I documented everything in the transfer plan. I said, "You used unconventional methods," he said. "They're struggling to understand your processes. They worked for 9 years. I'm prepared to offer a consulting fee. Name your price." I paused. My price, I said slowly, was being valued when it mattered. That window has closed. I hung up, then I blocked his number. Over the next 6 months, Horizon skyrocketed. We secured 7 new clients, revamped our compensation policy to be fully transparent, and became the top-rated financial advisory firm. For mid-sized companies in the region, Catherine and I sat on panels together, spoke at conferences, and were featured in a Women Who Changed Finance spotlight in a leading industry magazine. We didn't just rebuild, we redefined the rules. Garrett resigned under pressure. Vanessa took a job at a boutique firm 2 states away. Daniel demoted. And humiliated was never quite the same again. I heard he started teaching night classes in accounting at a community college. Fitting, I suppose. Teaching others what he had failed to understand himself. My old company was eventually acquired. The name was absorbed into a larger conglomerate. The building still stood, but the soul had been gutted. Sometimes I'd pass by it, look up at the glass facade, and feel nothing. Not regret, not anger, just confirmation. One Thursday evening, Catherine and I sat on the rooftop again, the same one where we toasted to new beginnings. This time, we were dressed in silk and leather, the city lights stretching beneath us like promises kept. "To the fallout," she said, raising her glass. "To the fallout," I echoed, clinking mine against hers, because sometimes destruction is the only path to clarity, and from the ashes, something better is always waiting to rise. The letter arrived in an unmarked envelope, tucked discreetly into the mailbox outside my new penthouse apartment. No postmark, no return address, just my name typed cleanly in the center. Inside, folded crisply, was a single sheet of high-grade parchment. The logo embossed at the top, a minimalist gold pine tree, told me everything I needed to know. The old company wasn't done with me. I poured myself a drink, turned on a soft jazz playlist, and settled onto my leather chaise to read. It was a cease and desist order. They were accusing me of breaching a non-disparagement clause from my original employment contract, something buried deep within the onboarding paperwork I had signed nearly a decade ago. According to them, my conversations with the media, the panels, and the vague allusions to unethical practices had violated the terms, but that wasn't the part that chilled me. The letter also referenced a clause I didn't remember, Clause 27B, intellectual property and proprietary systems. It claimed that all methodologies, tools, and systems I had created while employed, regardless of whether documented or patented, remained the property of the company, including the very systems I had replicated and enhanced at Horizon. My fingers tightened around the glass. They were coming after everything. I called Catherine. She answered on the second ring. "What did they send?" "A threat wrapped in gold embossed paper. They're invoking intellectual property claims over the systems I built." "Let me guess. Clause 27B. I froze. "You knew?" I suspected. After what happened to me, I went digging. They slipped similar clauses into a lot of legacy contracts. It's murky, legally speaking, but they're hoping the threat is enough to scare you. It's not. Good, because we have a bigger problem. My pulse quickened. What? They've filed for an injunction. If it goes through, it could freeze our systems for weeks. I met our legal team that afternoon. Our lead counsel, Naomi, was precise and fierce, with a binder thicker than a phone book. Their argument hinges on 2 things, she explained. First, that your systems at Horizon are derivative works. Second, that you access those systems post-departure using knowledge not outlined in your transfer documentation. But I didn't. I documented everything, and we'll prove that. But there's a wild card, which is, they've subpoenaed your drives. I went still. Because on one of those drives, buried beneath layers of password protection, was the prototype. The one I started in the final year at my old company. The one I hadn't disclosed. The one I had built on my own time, but with access to company data. The one that formed the foundation of Horizon's real-time compliance engine. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced the penthouse, barefoot, the city glittering outside the glass walls. I thought about everything I had sacrificed to get here. The nights, the years, the betrayal, and the one mistake I had made. I hadn't meant to hide the prototype. I had been building it long before Horizon even existed. It had been a personal challenge, a what-if experiment I ran in my off hours. But I hadn't disclosed it, and now they were using that as a crack in the dam. The question wasn't whether I'd be ruined. It was whether Horizon would be too. The emergency board meeting was tense. Catherine sat beside me, face unreadable. Naomi presented the situation. We have 3 options, she said. Settle, fight, or countersue. The room fell quiet. Catherine turned to me. What do you want to do, Ellie? I looked at each of them, leaders I respected, a company I had helped shape. We fight, and we expose them. Naomi smiled for the first time all day. The courtroom drama that followed made headlines for weeks. The company tried to play dirty. They submitted screenshots, partial logs, and twisted emails. But they underestimated the depth of my records. I produced time-stamped logs, design journals, GitHub repos, and corroborating testimony from 2 former colleagues who had reviewed my prototype over wine and frustration years ago. We didn't just prove that the system was mine, we proved that their real concern wasn't IP theft. It was a competition, because my system worked better, faster, cleaner, transparent. The court dismissed their injunction. The judge called their actions a thinly veiled attempt to stifle innovation and retaliate against a whistleblower. 2 weeks later, we filed our countersuit for defamation, harassment, and tortious interference. We won that too. The final check arrived by courier. 8 figures, enough to fund Horizon's next 5 years of expansion. Catherine framed a copy of the judgment and hung it in our lobby. Below it, a single quote etched in glass. Value is earned. Respect is demanded. Eleanor Avery. On the first anniversary of the day I found that spreadsheet, I returned to my favorite window table at Delphi Cafe. I ordered a cappuccino, opened my laptop, and began writing this story. Not for revenge, but for remembrance. Because too many people like me stay silent. Too many let fear win. Too many accept less than they deserve. If my story helps even one person stand up, walk into that boardroom and demand their worth, then every sleepless night, every courtroom battle, every painful decision will have been worth it. I'm Eleanor Avery, and I refuse to stay silent.